You're looking good, and it feels good to be with you today. Hello, I'm Kendall Bryan Hunter, author of this book, Consider My Servant Job. I'm a published author. That means I'm an expert. And I'm going to throw this, come follow me, or I should say, this is sort of some other podcast. This is News with the Eyes of Faith, where I talk about news from the perspective of Christ and the doctrine of Christ. My other podcast is, I do a come follow me one, going through the Doctrine and Covenants. So I've done it through, this is the fourth year, so we'll be winding that one down. I don't want to get repetitive or rote. But this is the news podcast. I started this just because I noticed there's a, things have been going on. I feel like we need to talk about news. This is just you, me, and the truth. And as we talk about these news items with the perspective of Jesus Christ and the doctrine, the added insight of the restoration, we come to some different conclusions. As you can tell, I'm not wearing a tie, so of course no one's going to confuse me with being a general authority or an official church spokesperson. See, church people would not wear a beat-up hat like this. It's just very classless, but Cuban jacket, hat. Yeah, let's talk. So the big item is the unanimous Ninth Circuit panel dismisses Huntsman tithing lawsuit. Some people left the church and they wanted to get their tithing back. That's been an issue. I remember when I was in high school, someone in Idaho tried to do it. And so then the old longer tithing slips would say, the church does not provide, temporal benefits, just intangible spiritual benefits. And yeah, there's a saying, there's only thing wrong with lawyer jokes. It's that they're all true. But a judge grants summary judgments to Latter-day Saints, saying no reasonable juror could conclude that the church misrepresented the source of funds for the City Creek project. That's from the Deseret Snooze. Church autonomy doctrine, the Establishment Clause, the government just doesn't interfere with the internal church stuff. Now, of course, if there's fraud or sex abuse, yeah, but just leave stuff alone. The church cannot order a person to perform a baptism or perform same-sex marriages. So rest safe. Yeah, I'm aware of the church has an investment fund. You can actually donate stock to the church. How stocks work, you buy ownership in the company, so the stock price hopefully goes up, but you also get, what's wrong? I just got some today from Xerox, the disbursements or, I can't remember the term, I'm just drawing a blank. See, I didn't put it on my notes, but yeah, you get money from the stocks. They pay you some money, some disbursements of money. So yeah, it's a good source. That's where you place your money after you paid off your debt. And I've talked about finance before. I'm rambling. This is going to be kind of a long one. You'll see when I get to the end. So Trump, Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, talked about streamlining things. He offered a deferred resignation. This is soft attrition versus mass layoffs. So if you're older, you're close to retirement age, you'd take this package. And then they just eliminate the position, not the function, but the position. There's a difference because the function can be handed off to different people. You have two realities. You need to cut government. It's out of control. Finally, someone's taking the bull by the horns. But you also need to be kind to people. And this is a good way of balancing both of those. This is why you need to have an emergency fund. Don't waste your money on buying bobbleheads. You need to get an emergency fund in place. Trump signed the Lincoln-Riley Act. Well, that's one where she was killed by someone who was an illegal alien. So remember the model I've been talking about, feelings, fairness, and friends. And this, with illegal immigration, that comes under the friends dynamic of it, that the left is motivated by friendships, being inclusive, community. But the problem is there's no vetting process. And it's the reason why there's no vetting process because it goes back to their beliefs of human nature. People on the left believe that people are good. Well, what's human nature from the scriptures? Lost, fallen, carnal, sensual, devilish, worthless, as King Benjamin says. And that's in the scriptures, but something happens where it gets blotted out. But, of course, there's good in people. You get extreme versions like in Calvinism where you have total depravity, absolute depravity. So what's your view of human nature? Lost, fallen, carnal, sensual, devilish. But you also have the capacity to repent. So watch the Gandhi biography from the 1980s. Then you watch a couple of episodes of Cops, and that gives you a good idea about human nature. Part of the problem is that the left got framed, or as the question was being framed that they're defending killers. You want illegal aliens, but you're just not processing that, yeah, some of them are actually killing people. And it goes in line with abortion and euthanasia and letting guilty people go free. This ties on, there's two, this is my conversion to Trump. Like a lot of people, I was obvious about his shortcomings and his problems, his abrasiveness, his brashness. There's a reason why he got impeached twice, and it didn't have to do with things he was doing. They just didn't like him. They had power to, Nancy Pelosi held the bullwhip, and she was just cracking it over him, and didn't work. By the time he hit the second impeachment, this is just all a political abusive process. But back in 2015, you had Jose Inez Garcia Zarate. He's an undocumented immigrant from Mexico, and he shot Katie Steinle, I think that's how you pronounce her name, in San Francisco. And it's funny because this is how I remember it. Trump made the comment about illegal immigrants, and they just left and said, no, they're not doing it. And then the next day, this crime happened. Okay, don't go into denial mode. And then you had this, the other thing that turned me on to Trump was I heard his Hugh Hewitt interview. This is from September 2016. And Hugh Hewitt, who's conservative, he's a good friend of Neil A. Maxwell. Searching for God in America, he interviewed Neil A. Maxwell. They had a friendship. And that's what we need, is this type of allyship. I'll talk about that a little bit later. Allyship isn't just a model for LGBTQ people. It's something conservatives need to adopt, allyship. And he interviewed him, and Trump really fumbled the answer, the difference between Hamas and Hezbollah. Now, when someone asks you that question, if I was to do that today, I'd just get my phone out, open up the chat bot, and just have the chat bot answer the question to say, look, this is a chatbot answer question. This is a chatbot question. This is not a leadership question. It's a factual one. But he kind of flubbed and he said, it doesn't really matter. And then once he gets in the office, he'll know a lot more than Hugh Hewitt knows, which is correct. But it kind of hit me is that, as Ernst says, it's right. It just doesn't matter who these groups are. If they're trying to kill us, I don't care if you're communist, fascist, if you're a Sunni or a Shiite, if you're a radicalized Christian, I don't care who you are. If you kill us, the distinction doesn't matter. And it was funny because he had the knowledge answer, then he had the wisdom answer, and he actually gave the wise answer to that. It's like, yeah, I don't care what you believe, what your sacred text is. If you're trying to kill us, that's what matters. Church tied to that is with church and immigration. Now the church released 3 points about their approach to it, and I saw this off of X. One, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints obeys the law. You have an article of faith to that point. Second, we follow Jesus Christ by loving our neighbors. The Savior taught that the meaning neighbor includes all of God's children. 3, we seek to provide basic food and clothing as our capacity allows to those in need, regardless of their immigration status. We're especially concerned about keeping families together. And then they had some little bit legalese at the end, the Office of General Counsel for the Church. You see what happens is that's perfect way to discuss this. Okay, you start it with obeying the law, but you realize there's a human aspect to it. Mercy cannot rob justice. And you think of a hospital. The hospital's primary mission is to heal people, regardless of it. At the hospital, they'll have criminals in there. People get shot. And so you have the people who shoot police, and the policemen who are shot will take care of both of them. This is called an antinomy, where you have two laws in tension, two opposite things seem to be going the opposite direction. We have to balance it. So you have the rule of law, and you have families, the community. The left likes talking about communities. They have community say, okay, community is everything, to the point where, okay, you allow child molesters into primary. I want you to think about this too. This issue goes with birthright citizenship. This is constructive law. It's positive law. It's nothing inherent. It's not like a law of nature. We can change this law, and apparently you're going to have to change it with a constitutional amendment. If you remember, Mark Levin, back about 10 years ago, was advocating these type of things. Well, this is maybe how we have to solve this issue, is give a proviso on the or refinement on birthright citizenship, and we can change it, just pass a law. And of course, there's ex post facto factors involved, but yeah, we just pass a constitutional amendment and clear this up really simple. Here's a life hack. At work, I heard this lady say that Donald Trump was going to deport everyone who wasn't white. No, that's not true, because illegal immigration status or refugee status, that's not a color. That's not something racial. It's not genetic. It's not Darwin. It's something that's what Aristotle would call constructive. It's a non-essential attribute of you. Eye color and hair color, that's something that's essential. That's back in your DNA code, but not your citizenship. Now, in this situation, I didn't say anything because the comment wasn't directed towards me, and I didn't feel it was inappropriate to interrupt. I felt the best strategy was doing what I was doing now. I did a YouTube Shorts about it. I think I got about 500 views on it, so thank you. My message is getting out there, and I hope you're a better person from some of the things I said. But yeah, if you start poking your finger in every conversation, butting in, it becomes a problem. Law of diminishing returns. So I measured it. But this is how I'd respond to that. I say, I am pretty sure that Donald Trump's not going to deport Condoleezza Rice. He's going to deport everyone who's not white. Yeah, he's going to deport Condoleezza Rice. Pretty sure that's not going to happen. Trump again. He's going to have SpaceX get the astronauts up there. And this highlights some of the sick inefficiencies that Biden, he put people at risk. Go play back those images of the fall of Afghanistan with people falling off the airplane. You saw it. People who were so desperate they're hanging on to the edge of the airplane and falling from thousands of feet. And your friends voted that man into office. Think about this. Political parties are like a scientific theory. They have certain predictive values. There's experimental aspects to them. You put certain political philosophies into place, and they'll generate certain results. So I was born in California, which is a one-party state, and I live in Utah now, which is also a one-party state. So in California, Oakland, where I was born, Oakland's a Mad Max scenario. Los Angeles is an incinerator, and San Francisco is the poop emoji capital of the world. Left for abortion, euthanasia, and puberty blockers. And the political party can't rescue astronauts. They produce a president who's murph. Utah, which has a different political party, you get Silicon Slopes. Okay, which political theory is giving you the better results? Strong families and Silicon Slopes. New X account you need to subscribe to. It's called Rapid Response 47. It's a quick debunk thing. Now, another one is the American Debunk. Elon Musk always points, how do you know which side's evil? The one that's blocking memes and that's for censorship, but also the side that's generating hoaxes about people. He passed legal scrutiny twice. You rammed him to get the felon label attached to his forehead. But it's just not sticking. This is why I use the term confusocracy, hoaxes and confusocracy. Here we're talking about 13 minutes. I'd like to talk about another account. Now, let me begin by saying that there's people have different gifts of the Spirit, and we need as many people and different voices talking to help our point of view. And this is a Thoughtful Faith account. Now, I was going to look up his name, so just do Brother Thoughtful Faith, and talked a little bit about the allyship. That's a tactic work with LGBTQ, and we need to adopt this. We need to work with other people. Ronald Reagan had his 11th commandment, thou shalt not criticize a fellow Republican. So the Thoughtful Faith account had... He talked about his background. He spliced together some videos, and it's an interesting read. This is someone who entire family left the church. It was one thing that happened. The other thing is he got really enamored by secular philosophy, Aristotle, Aquinas, Alvin Plantinga, some of the newer ones. And to begin with this, let me say is I'm using Soren Kierkegaard as a model. I threw in a lot of humor and lightheartedness. I also publish fiction under pen names. I have a different account. I outed myself as the Elders Quorum Secretary as one where I'd be a bit more vocal about stuff. So, like Soren Kierkegaard, who would publish under pseudonyms. I'm doing the same thing. My mother's maiden name is Danish, so yes, I have ancestry from Scandinavia and Denmark, and I can talk like that because that's my 2 DNA test. Yeah, it's Denmark. So I like to begin that when I say this, and this is just an observation. I was watching The Thoughtful The Thoughtful Saint, and here's where I was about 20 years ago when you read my book, It's Sort of My Servant Job. There's a lot of philosophical dimension to it. But there's a little bit difference. I had more of an immersion, just going from this video, I had more of an immersion to church history where I was reading the teachings of books for the different presidents of the church. This was actually before the church manuals came out, but Deseret Book and Bookcraft would publish teachings of Joseph Smith, discourses of Brigham Young, Wilford Woodruff, teachings of Lorenzo Snow. So I was reading these books and getting more of it grounded in church history, plus the papers of Joseph Smith. So it's a little bit different. This was also the heyday of Ravi Zacharias. Now, he's been discredited. What was discredited is not the right term. Disgrace, I would say, is that he was having sexual affairs, and that's another thing to talk about, is read up on Ravi Zacharias, what happened to him. But before the collapse of his ministry, he was a good gateway to philosophy and logic and apologetics. Another one is R.C. Sproul. I think it's Oz Guinness is another one, and I just really devoured his works, and I saw how helpful it was with the church. But this apologetic approach isn't what Joseph Smith had. Now, when you read the 1830 account of the First Division, the 1832 account, he talks about the what you call the cosmological argument. And you see that in the Book of Mormon, and when Alma the Younger is debating Korihor, the cosmological argument. There is a place for it, but it does have some limitations. When you're quoting C.S. Lewis or Aquinas or Alvin Plantinga, they have a different metaphysic. Ex nihilo creation, they believe in the Trinity, and depending on who you're talking to, there's different views of agency. Most people nowadays believe that we have agency, but older Catholics didn't. Calvinism, in fact, one of Luther's greatest works is called On the Bondage of the Will. Erasmus wrote Libri Arbitrio, and Martin Luther responded, no, Servo Arbitrio. And it has to do with depravity, grace, and if you have depravity and grace, you don't have agency. And that's what Luther and Calvin thought. And there's a danger relying upon those things. Doctrine and Covenants in Section 18 says, rely upon the things that are written. Section 6, Joseph Smith was told, this generation shall have my word from you. So you read these stuffs, and it's helpful to read C.S. Lewis. I was blessed by that. But when you're doing the brass knuckle works of the church, you go back to the Joseph Smith papers and trace everything you can back to Joseph Smith and understand how Joseph Smith did things. So, like I said, I endorse it. Follow Thoughtful Faith on X. He has a volunteer page. Join that if you feel so inclined. But remember that there's limitations to this philosophical approach because we're taking arguments with a different metaphysical assumption, and you start digging down and these things collapse. I don't want to get into that. I have some other things to talk about, but pay attention to these dangers with ex nihilo Trinity and with agency. A little bit more about the culture war. This has to do with the Captain America movie coming out. Captain America is called New World Order or Brave New World. They did a lot of reshoots and retitles where they have Sam Mackie as Falcon taking over the Captain America mantle. Now, this is the disclaimer. Look, here's my Yoda toy back from the 1980s when I was a little kid. See, I have it. Look, here's a Transformer toy still in the box. Okay, do I establish my bona fides that I'm actually into this? I don't do streaming because it's not worth the money. You're just getting a lot of Hollywood upchucking into a barf bag, and here's the latest Star Wars program. So I understand where they're coming from. In fact, J.J. Abrams screwed up Star Trek and Star Wars. He did a recovery with the Rise of Skywalker, considering what was handed to him with Episode 8. I don't stream. I'll go to the movies, but it's just some of the movies have been so bad. And there's two of these movie critics. The one's called Overlord DVD. It's an adult one. he drops F-bombs in there. This isn't for kids, so make sure your wife's at Relief Society meeting and you're there when you watch this, because your wife's going to get kind of irritated with the language. It's the same thing with the Critical Overlord DVD. Now, he wears a mask, and what his story is that he's a Hollywood insider, and he has contacts, so he has to disguise who he is, but I think maybe a secret may have gotten out, and it's these secrets don't last long. The other one is the Critical Drinker, and he's from Scotland, and yeah, another thing, it's the language. So these are people who are not MAGA hatters. Not Mad Hatters, but MAGA hatters. But they see how Hollywood toxicity and DEI has really screwed up the arts, and they're kind of pushing back. So I have a link to two of them talking about the Captain America movie. It's interesting. They both talk about patriotism. Like I said, the American ones, he says, yeah, I'm not this Republican. He's probably a social liberal. But yeah, patriotism means something to him. And the Critical Drinker talks about patriotism. It's interesting because he's from Scotland, and the Scotland separatist movement may have some plan there. They're social liberals, but they love the country, and they're criticizing the anti-Americanism that's coming out of Disney. I endorse that. I do that. So remember how I talked about arts as a vehicle? You have the philosophical, but then you have the popular, and it's popular fiction, but also art as a way to persuade people. And this is what it does. What's going on is these people, younger kids, are just getting robotically programmed to hate America. That is all I can think. And this is really a call for conservative writers to use art as a vehicle to get the good message out about patriotism. A person can be imperfect but still be a good person. A country can be imperfect but still be a good country. And as owning slaves, does Christ's atonement cover that sin? So remember, if you're a member of the church, become an author if you have that inclination. Now, I have 50 published books, right? Oh, it's going to be funny when in the resurrection we find out these books I've written. But you also can write fiction, so take up the cause on your own. The other one thing is you can buy stock in Disney. I'm a shareholder of Disney, and it was just yesterday they had a shareholders voting, and I voted in a way that let Disney know that as a shareholder, I don't like what they're doing. I own stock and I have a voice in Disney, and the way I voted was and said, no, you're going the wrong direction with Snow White and what you're doing to Star Wars, the MCU, to your legacy properties. I don't like it, and I'm voting that way. And you can just buy one share of stock of Disney, and you'll have a voice in there, not just with the box office. So I'm giving them a 1-2 punch. I really talk about members writing fiction. Think about what The Work and Glory did to appreciation of Joseph Smith's mission, especially with the Joseph Smith papers coming out. The Chosen, how that's affecting people's perspectives on Jesus Christ. Those are my alarms going off to remind me to do what I'm doing right now. And conservatives have done this. You have Rush Revere books. Dennis Prager did things with his dog Otto. You have the Tuttle twins. You can write your own books about conservatives, take a different approach to things. Dr. Laura did some kids' book, and the disgraced Ravi Zacharias wrote some kids' books too. You can do it. Now, I'm going to we're at 23 minutes. So let me give my voice a rest here. I'd like to conclude with something that I felt impressed to talk about, is that liberals base things on feelings, but conservatives base things on facts. And so the feelings are siloed sensations. You feel one way, you can, and this is the confusing thing when you're conservatives, because there's no coherence to what people on the left believe. But if you're conservative, you base things on fact and principle, which has a universal application. Your feelings are limited to your own heart, but a factual proposition is something where you can build community around. And Rush Limbaugh had these things called undeniable truths of life. So I'm going to read through the first one. The first one was published in '88 in Sacramento. The greatest threat to humanity lies in the nuclear arsenal of the USSR. The greatest threat to humanity lies in the USSR. That's Mother Russia. Peace does not mean the elimination of nuclear weapons. Peace does not mean the absence of war. War is not obsolete. Ours is a world governed by the aggressive use of force. There's only one way to get rid of nuclear weapons: use them. Peace can't be achieved by developing an understanding with the Russian people. 9. When Americans oppose America, it's not always courageous and sacred. It's sometimes dangerous. Communism kills. 11. Neither the U.S. nor anyone imposes freedom on the peoples of other nations. 12. Freedom is God-given. 13. In the USSR, peace means the absence of opposition. To free peoples, peace means the absence of threats and the presence of justice. 15. The peace movement in the U.S., whether by accident or design, is pro-communist. 16. The collective knowledge and wisdom of seasoned citizens is the most valuable yet untapped resource our young people have. 17. The greatest football team in the history of civilizations is the Pittsburgh Steelers, 1975 to 1980. A very bad impersonation of Howard Cosell. 18. There's no such thing as war atrocities. There's no such things as war atrocities. War itself is an atrocity, 18 to 19. 20. There is a God, 21. Abortion is wrong, 22. Morality is not defined and cannot be defined by individual choice, 23. Evolution cannot explain creation, 24. Feminism was established so as to allow unattractive women access to the mainstream of society. Sensitive, insulting, sounds like something Donald Trump would say. Google an image of Andrea Dworkin. 25. That's just a beauty statement about beauty bias. Yeah, beauty bias. That's all that is for, is beauty bias. Number 25. Love is the only human emotion that cannot be controlled. 26. The only difference between Mikhail Gorbachev and previous Soviet leaders is that Gorbachev is alive. 27. Soviet leaders are just left-wing dictators. 28. Abe Lincoln saved this nation. 29. The LA Raiders will never be the team they were when they called their Oakland their home. It's funny. Now they're in Las Vegas. 30. The U.S. will again go to war. That was in 1988 he said that. Well, that's true. 31. To more and more people, a victorious U.S. is a sinful U.S. 32. This is frightening and ominous. 33. There will always be poor people. Christ said that. 34. This is not the fault of the rich. 35. You should thank God for making you an American instead of feeling guilty about it. Help spread the ideas worldwide. That's probably a transcription error. So he did a second version. This is from 1992, and this was published in the Limbaugh letter. So if you have a copy of that, don't send me the copy. Just take a picture of this and email it to me or put it on social media and tag it. I'd love to see the primary source of this. So here it is. 1. The greatest threat to the human spirit is liberalism. 2. The single greatest threat to free people of the world is posed by the heinous idea of centralized government control. 3. Peace does not mean the elimination of nuclear weapons. 4. Peace does not mean the absence of war. 5. War is not obsolete. 6. Ours is a world governed by the aggressive use of force. 7. There's only one way to eliminate nuclear weapons. Use them. 8. Peace cannot be achieved by merely developing an understanding among peoples. 9. Americans opposing America is not always sacred nor courageous. It is sometimes dangerous. 10. Liberalism poisons the soul. That's why I was talking about this scientific theory. What is this? Compare California to Utah, or Michigan to Utah, or Boston to Utah, Florida, Utah and Florida versus New York and California. 11. Neither the United States nor anyone else imposes freedom on the people of other nations. Freedom is not an imposition. 12. Freedom is God-given. To dictatorships, peace means the absence of opposition. To free people, peace means the absence of threat. The peace movement, this is 15, in the United States was, whether by accident or design, pro-communist. 16. The collective knowledge and wisdom of seasoned citizens, that's senior citizens, is the most valuable yet untapped resource of our young people have. 17. The greatest football team in the history of civilization was the Pittsburgh Steelers from 75 through 1980. 18. There's no such thing as war atrocities. War is an atrocity. 19. Regardless of the pain in our memories, nostalgia only reminds us of the good times of our past. 20. There is a God. 21. Abortion is wrong. 22. Morality is not defined by individual choice. That's because it just becomes self-serving. 23, evolution cannot explain creation. 24, feminism was established so that unattractive women could have easier access to the mainstream of society. Once again, beauty bias. 25, love is the only human emotion which cannot be controlled. You either do it or you don't. You can't fake it, except women, and thank God they can. 26, the only difference between Mikhail Gorbachev and previous Soviet leaders is that he is alive. 27, Soviet leaders were actually left-wing dictators. 28, Abraham Lincoln saved this nation. 29, the Los Angeles Raiders will never be the team they were when they called Oakland home. 30, the United States will again go to war. 31, to more and more American intellectuals, a victorious United States is a sinful United States. 32, the fact that American intellectuals rue a victorious United States is frightening and ominous. 33, there will always be poor people. 34, the fact that there will always be poor people is not the fault of the rich. 35, rather than feel guilty, as some do, you should thank God for making you an American. Now, that last one is, I think it was Ronald Dart talked about the difference between feeling grateful and feeling guilty. Now, here's the official second 35 undeniable truths. So that was sort of a mid one. We're at a half an hour now, but I need to get this message out about thinking in terms of principles and axioms. 1, there's a distinct singular American culture, rugged individualism and self-reliance, which made America great. 2, the vast majority of the rich in this country did not inherit their wealth. They earned it. They are the country's achievers, producers, and job creators. 3, no nation has ever taxed itself into prosperity. You read that in the Book of Mormon. 4, evidence refutes liberalism. Like I said, treat it as a scientific theory. 5, there's no such thing as a new Democrat. That was Bill Clinton was describing himself as a new Democrat. 6, the Earth ecosystem is not fragile. 7, character matters. Leadership descends from character. Again, Bill Clinton. Leadership descends from character. 8, the most beautiful thing about a tree is what you do with it after you cut it down. 9, Ronald Reagan was the greatest president of the 20th century. 10. The 1980s was not a decade of greed, but a decade of prosperity. It was the longest period of peacetime growth in American history. 11. Abstinence prevents sexually transmuted diseases in pregnancy every time it's tried. 12. Condoms only work during the school year. This is back when they'd hand out condoms at school. So, okay, what do you do during the summer? 13. Property is not the rut cause of crime. 14. There's a simple way to solve crime, the crime problem. Obey the law, punish those who do not. Watch cops. 15. If you commit a crime, you are guilty. 16. Women should not be allowed on juries where the accused is a stud. That's with the Lyle Menendez trial. He's just very physically attractive, and can you shut off the hormones? Well, yeah, you can. Self-control. 17. The way to improve schools is not more money. It's introduction of moral and spiritual values, as well as the 4 R's, reading, writing, arithmetic, and rush. There's an old saying about reading, writing, and arithmetic were the basics of education. Moral, spiritual values. That's why we got the Book of Virtues out. 18. I am not arrogant. 19. My first 35 undeniable truths are still undeniably true. 20. There is a God. 21. There's something wrong when critics say the problem with America is too much religion. There's something wrong when critics say the problem with America is too much religion. 21. 22. Morality is not defined by individual choice. 23. The only way liberals win a national election is by pretending they're not liberals. Confuseocracy. 24. Feminism was established to allow unattractive women easier access to the mainstream of society. Beauty bias again. 25. Follow the money. When someone says it's not the money, it's always the money. Scott Adams is picking up on this, and it's just kind of funny as Scott Adams, who's like a social liberal and voted for Democrats, he starts, okay, it's like he's starting to sound like Rush Limbaugh, the same thing with Bill Maher. 26. Liberals attempt through the judicial activism what they cannot win at the ballot box. Donald Trump's 2 impeachments, the felony post-it note. 27. Using federal dollars as a measure, our cities have not been neglected but poisoned with welfare dependency funds. 28. Progress is not striving for economic justice or fairness, but economic growth. 29. Liberals measure compassion by how many people are given welfare. Conservatives measure compassion by how many people no longer need it. 30. Compassion is no substitute for justice. Mercy cannot rob justice. 31. The culture war is between the winners and those who think they're losers who want to become the winners. The losers think the only way they can become winners is by banding together all the losers and empowering a leader of those losers to make things right for them. That's intersectionality. This was back in the 1990s, but he was just describing intersectionality without using the term. 32. The Los Angeles riots were not caused by the Rodney King verdict. The Los Angeles riots were caused by the rioters. That's called suppressing the agent, and logic suppressing the agent. The car drove itself. Well, no, a person was driving the car, unless it was a driverless car. 33. You could afford your house without your government if it weren't for the government. That's what caused the 2008 Great Recession, was the housing market. 34. Words mean things. 35. Too many Americans can't laugh at themselves anymore. So those are the truths. So this is your assignment. Come up with your own 35 undeniable truths and start thinking axiomatically, these pithy statements. Each one of these could become its own post on X, its own tweet. It's very easy to manage, and you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about it, but it's an assertion of obvious truth. Now, is this being contentious when I ask you to post stuff? No, this is what the scriptures say, and Elder Robert D. Hales in April 2014 quoted this. This is from section 71, verses 7 through 9. Wherefore, confound your enemies, call upon them to meet you both in public and in private. And inasmuch as you are faithful, their shame shall be made manifest. Wherefore, let them bring forth their strong reasons against the Lord. Verily, thus saith the Lord unto you, there's no weapon that is formed against there's no weapon that is formed against you shall prosper. So this isn't be a doormat. Don't keep quiet for the sake of peace. No battered spouse syndrome. Make sure you're speaking up, speaking the truth in love, but confound them in public and private. That's one of your commandments. Wherefore, confound your enemies. That's a scriptural mandate, so don't be quiet. We're in a phase where we do have social media outlets out there, and we need to protect the freedom of speech. Thank you, Mr. Musk. Thank you, Donald Trump, for protecting free speech. That's why I live and die by free speech. And that, my brothers and sisters, is news with the eyes of faith.